My name is Shanley. I sacrificed a lot to be here this morning. I did not get drunk last night. Other things you need to know about me before I start my talk: I've spent my entire career working at startups that build infrastructure for enterprises, so I'm not necessarily talking about web apps or mobile apps. I've never worked at a company that ran Ruby in production, so I won't be talking about that. But what I am going to talk to you is about deciding what to build and how you can build a good environment where you can make good decisions about what to build, and how the fastest and easiest ways that people land themselves in a situation where they can't make good product decisions. So, Dante, the original lean startup practitioner, go directly to hell and do not iterate. He wrote books. The Inferno is one of them. I'm going to talk a little bit about the circles of hell. One of them is fraud, pictured here. Fraud is where this circle is where you go when you lie. There's like this three-headed beast thing. You get all these random diseases. There's like this boiling pitch thing that people are burning in. This should sound pretty familiar if you've ever been in product management, because it's a roadmap. So when I talk about roadmap, what I'm talking about is anything that has both timeline and features on it. Turns out that this is inherently a lie 100% of the time, because people are really bad at predicting the future. People are really bad at predicting how much they can accomplish. People are bad at predicting life-threatening bugs that stop their releases for 2 months. I have seen releases slip for up to a year. Not even joking, it gets really ugly out there. So the problem with roadmaps, why they're inherently a lie, is the problem, you can't be like, I don't know, on the roadmap. Like, you can't just turn it over and it's covered with question marks. But it turns out that I don't know is the only question, or is the only answer that's not a complete lie. This is super bad. Roadmaps cause a massive erosion of trust between the engineering team and the rest of the organization. Because the rest of the organization is like, you said you were going to do this, and you didn't, and now the rest of the company thinks that you suck and that you're bad at your job. And so you don't want that to happen, so you start working 80-hour weeks, and you're sleeping under your desk, and you're writing horrible code, and you're introducing all these horrible bugs and technical debt. And it's bad, and then marketing's like, oh, you have this great product roadmap, I'm just gonna launch what you come up with, and then they're dependent completely on you, and then their organization is all dysfunctional. And then you're making decisions way before you need to. You're like, 6 months from now, we're gonna start on this huge redesign of the infrastructure. You don't know what you're gonna know in 6 months. It's too early to start thinking about that. Also, roadmaps waste everyone's time. You're gonna be in meetings with the CEOs and the executives, and you're gonna be fighting about it and arguing about it. All of these people have better shit to do. So, luckily, Dante also has spheres of heaven. One of them is Inconstancy. This is embodied by the moon. The moon changes shapes all the time, just like your roadmap and what you're working on. So throw out all of your roadmaps. To do this, you actually have to sit down with people and talk them through why a roadmap is a really bad idea. You have to sit down with your CEO and be like, you told me to build a roadmap for you, but it's probably gonna ruin the company. Are you okay with that? And then they're like, oh, that's right, this is a really bad idea, so what do you do instead? So start simple. Make a document that's called What We're Working On. Let everyone go into it. Let them put what they're working on. Let this be a place for questions and comments and discussion. And the really key thing here is that change the document all the time. When things change, when you run into new bugs that are gonna slip releases and features, update it, make it change. And in order to do this and do it well, you have to make everyone in the company who shares these ideas with the people outside the company responsible for the expectations they set. So the roadmap is not a promise or an obligation on the company's part, and if your salespeople are out there talking about it, they're responsible for managing the expectations of customers. Let's talk about, this one is greed. So greed is not quite as bad as the other one. You've got two teams. They're like fighting each other endlessly. They're carrying heavy weights. Greed is about greed in product and greed in setting up what you're going to do and making good decisions is about thinking you're going to get way more done than you actually are. And over again, people make this mistake. They think they're going to get all of this stuff done, and they really aren't. And the problem with thinking that you're going to get more stuff done than you actually are is that you're going to do a lot of things in a really half-ass way. Like, you're going to pick 10 things instead of 5 things, and you're going to half-ass all 10 of them. You're going to get less stuff done to completion. You're going to finish stuff. You'll get partway there, then you'll abandon it. And you'll do easy things to check things off your list instead of doing what's important. It's cutting off a little bit of my slides there. The antidote to this is to be a little bit wiser. So my rule of thumb is like, take what you think you can do and take like 1/4 of it and throw the rest out. You're never going to do it. And take the time that you think it's going to take to do all of those things and times it by 2 and apply it to the fourth of things that you chose. Like, you can't get much done. You think you have a lot of time and you really don't. Like, you can maybe get 20 hours of good work out of a person. Like, you can get 10 hours of me a week on a good week, right? So, to fix this problem, part of what you have to do is like just make a list of what's important for your team. Like, what are the top priorities of your team? And like, what are people actually working on? And you will be surprised at like what mismatch there is between those things. Start with the important stuff and throw everything else away. And you'll never get to the things that aren't important, and that's okay. This is a gigantic worm creature with the head of a dog. Gluttony. Really bad place, vast, vile, slush, like people get stuck in it, it smells, there's this worm. I hate worms, they're really gross. Gluttony is when you have a company that's overly dependent on tools, or you're using too many tools. Like, you've got like 4 bug trackers, you have Trello, you have like a virtual Kanban, you have like a physical Kanban that you take pictures of and like send to people. And God forbid you have 20% time because you built your own too. What you hear from people is we have to use all these tools because like we can't find one that's perfect for us. We're special. You get the religious people who are like these tiny differences and the tools profoundly impact the way that we work. And you get like people switching from different tools like every couple months. And this is bad. Good contemplatives, you think about it a little bit, and you realize that the tools are not what's going on here. Like, the tools are not the problem. The problem is expectations, it's communication, it's priorities, like something else is going on that you're relying on all these tools. So try getting rid of all of them. Like, if you have 50 tools and like you're not happy with your management process and how you're coming up with decisions and managing feature requests and bugs, just get rid of all of them. Of course, you're like, oh God, we have this elaborate system that's tracking every feature request and every bug over the past 3 years. Like, I can't get rid of that. Here's the thing, like, if there aren't people in your organization who know what's important and what's broken enough to move forward, you are already fucked. So just let the fear take you and delete all of it and start over. You have to clear the clutter in order to actually address the problems that are going on. This is limbo. Limbo's actually not that bad. Like, there's smart Greek philosophers and good conversations, hang out with Socrates or whoever. There's like a castle. Limbo is like, it's okay. There's like better shit down there, but you like can't get to it. That's what limbo is all about. And this is about like technical debt. This is about all the stuff in your company that's holding you back and that's keeping you from getting to being faster and more available and more reliable and better development. The key here is you have to, as a company, like dedicate time to taking care and resources to taking care of technical debt. So I really want to talk about culture because you hear this, you've heard about culture a lot at this conference. And what I want to say about culture is that I don't care what kind of coffee you drink. I don't care if you're friends with everyone in your company. I don't care if you hang out on the weekends. I don't care what internal chat service you use. I don't care about like your little rules for interacting with each other. That's totally irrelevant. Culture is about what in your company is more important than other things in your company. It's not always good. In fact, usually culture is about the hard shit that no one wants to talk about. Like, we hire fast instead of hiring right. That's a cultural thing that no one talks about. Another one is marketing is more important than engineering. It's a cultural belief that happens in some places. This is what culture is actually about. It's not about 20% time, not about any of that stuff. Culture picks between alternate good things, often things that are good. Stuff gets left behind. Sometimes culture picks bad things. Technical debt is a cultural problem, and it's the problem of saying that features are way more important than taking care of technical debt. How you fix this in your company, look at the stuff underneath the API. Like if the stuff underneath the API is gonna ruin your entire life, do you care how usable it is? Like, no, you don't. So like, look beyond just what the surface areas are. Technical debt usually happens in the parts of the infrastructure that people don't care about as much. In order to actually address technical debt, you have to address internal ghettos that form around them. Like, technical debt tends to be like, those worms that like crawl inside trees and the tree builds like this huge thing around it to try to contain it. There are people in your organization that are containing the technical debt and that are hiding it. You have to spread that pain around, like find that pain and make more people have it. It's the only way to address this problem. Like, you have to make the company feel the pain. You cannot let the pain of technical debt hide in like poor Joe who's in the basement with the MySQL server. Like, you can't do that. You have to build a culture where it's okay to acknowledge technical debt, and when you build features, you're like, in this release, we're probably introducing this bit of technical debt. You have to have an open discussion about what trade-offs you're making. What is this one? This one's anger. There's like a river. There's like a swamp somewhere back there. There's all these angry people fighting with each other forever. This is about the internal drama that happens in your company when you make product decisions. Like, product decisions are one of the ugliest parts of companies because everyone has an opinion about it. Like, you're like, oh, like, what do you think we should do with the product? No one's like, oh, like, I don't know. Like, they're like, oh, here's my 10 ideas of like how we're gonna fix the product and make it better. But not every opinion can make it in. So how do you deal and manage with like internal strife around making decisions about products without causing resentment and distrust, without causing loss of faith in the product? It is earthly love, one of the spheres of the heavens. This is a pretty picture. It's about just culturally, like, embracing people around you in your organization, creating a culture where it's safe to talk about product decisions, creating a culture that educates people about like what a feature request actually is. Like, I work for a database company. So many people ask me like, why can't you be more like Hadoop? Like, I hear that all the time. Like, that's not a feature request. You have to train everyone in your organization about like what is a feature request, what matters, like what's valuable. Otherwise, you're not gonna be getting this valuable feedback from the outside that you can't get when you're inside of the organization. You have to tell people why you're making decisions. Like, we're building this instead of this, and like, this is why. Like, talk about trade-offs and tell people like, we can't build this thing because we're building this thing, and like, this is how the resources work out, and this is what is possible. Create a feedback loop where when people make feature requests, you can tell back to them, like, this is why we're not doing it, this is why we're going this way, this is why we're making a decision. To scale this, I've found something that works pretty well is to do team-based exercises. So work with the sales team together as a group and say like, okay, if we could come up with like our top list of things that we want out of the product, what would those things be? and force teams to prioritize within themselves and use sort of knowledge from each other, and then go back to them and tell them why. It's going to be there or it's not. You have to extend trust when you're talking and making product decisions to other people in your organization besides developers and engineers. Like, you hear a lot when people talk about companies, like there's divides and there's tension between that part of the organization and the rest of it. This kills companies like crazy. Like, this will destroy your startup. Like, if engineers don't trust anyone else and the rest of your company doesn't trust them, that will kill your company. So I guess in summary, I would just say it's super easy when you're trying to make product decisions to land in a place where, like, as a company, you can't make good decisions. Whether this is you have a roadmap that is keeping you committed to stuff that doesn't matter anymore, or you're not communicating accurately about things, or you're not addressing technical debt. There are dramatic, painful, but practical ways that you can go about fixing it. There's a saying in the Valley that says, be excellent to each other, but what's actually more important is to be honest with each other. Like, at the end of the day, that's what all of this comes down to, is just being honest with people that are around you, being honest with yourself, being honest with the outside world about what you can build and what you're trying to do. And that's all I have.